The morning television set of This Morning was supposed to radiate warmth, light, and a cozy charm. A place where celebrity guests sip tea, share heartfelt stories, and bask in the glow of friendly banter. But when Prince Harry walked onto the set, the atmosphere shifted. What was meant to be a polished promotional appearance for the prince quickly spiraled into one of the most unforgettable confrontations in daytime TV history. Harry's sharp tongue, Dermot O'Leary's mounting frustration, and Alison Hammond's desperate attempts to keep the peace turned a routine interview into a fiery showdown that ended with Harry storming off in a blaze of anger. The clash left the audience stunned, the hosts rattled, and the moment etched into television lore. The This Morning studio buzzed with its usual electric energy as the cameras began to roll. The set, with its bright lights and plush indigo sofas, felt like a welcoming living room. Alison Hammond greeted viewers with her signature infectious smile, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Beside her, Dermot O'Leary adjusted his neatly stacked notes, his calm and professional demeanor setting a familiar tone. "Good morning, everyone. We're thrilled to have a very special guest with us today," Alison announced, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "He's someone you all know, whose life has been, well, more than a little public. Please welcome Prince Harry." The audience erupted in applause as Harry strode onto the set. Dressed in a sharp, dark-tailored suit with the top button of his crisp white shirt undone for a touch of casual flair, he offered a small wave. But there was something in his demeanor, a tight jaw, a furrowed brow, a glint of defiance in his eyes, that hinted he wasn't here to play the charming guest. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Alison leaned forward, her warmth genuine. "Harry, it's so lovely to have you here with us today. How are you feeling this morning?" Harry let out a dry chuckle, leaning back in his chair with an almost dismissive ease. "Well, Alison, I suppose I'm feeling the same as always, surrounded by people ready to ask questions they think they already know the answers to." The audience let out an awkward laugh, unsure whether he was joking or setting a confrontational tone. Alison's smile flickered for a split second before she recovered with her trademark charm. "Oh, come on now, we're just excited to chat with you. Tell us, how's life been in California? Are you settling in with Meghan and the kids?" Harry's response came fast, sharp, and with a cutting edge. "California's fine, Alison. At least there I'm not hounded every single moment by the British press. Or," he added, casting a pointed glance at Dermot, "by TV presenters fishing for their next big headline." Dermot's eyebrows shot up, but he kept his voice steady, his professionalism intact. "We're not chasing headlines, Harry. We're just giving our viewers a chance to hear from you directly. Surely that's something you value, considering how often you've said the press twists your words." Harry smirked, his posture relaxed but his tone biting. "Oh sure, Dermot. The difference is, I usually get to choose who I speak to. Today, it seems I didn't have that luxury." The studio's energy shifted, the tension thickening like a gathering storm cloud. Alison jumped in quickly, her voice bright but tinged with nervousness. "Oh, come now, Harry, we're delighted you're here. Everyone watching at home is eager to hear about your projects, your life, and of course, your family. How are Archie and Lilibet doing?" Harry sighed dramatically, shifting in his seat as if the question itself was an imposition. "They're fine, Alison. Perfect, in fact. But every time someone asks about my kids on live TV, I can't help but wonder, are you genuinely curious or just digging for a soundbite? If it's the latter, I'll save us all the trouble. They're wonderful. Full stop." The audience stirred, sensing the growing unease. Alison let out a nervous laugh, trying to keep things light. "Well, we are genuinely interested, Harry. You're a father, and so many of our viewers are parents too. It's a connection point." But Harry cut her off, his voice sharp and unyielding. "A connection point? Alison, you don't know me. You don't know my children. And you definitely don't know what it's like to live under the constant shadow of a monarchy that controls every part of your life. So, forgive me if I don't see this as a cozy little chat." The studio fell quieter, the air heavy with discomfort. Dermot shifted in his chair, his calm demeanor starting to fray. He leaned forward, his voice firmer now. "Harry, with all due respect, you agreed to be here. When public figures come on This Morning, the goal is to have an open conversation. That's not about intrusion. It's about honesty with the public who followed your journey." Harry's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. Honesty? Don't lecture me about honesty, Dermot. I've been forced to live honestly every single day while the press twists everything I say and do. This is just another circus, and I'm the show pony while you're the handler making sure I trot out the right lines. Gasps rippled through the audience. Alison's eyes darted to Dermot, silently pleading for him to keep things under control. Dermot inhaled slowly, his restraint visible. Harry, Alison said softly, we just want to understand your perspective. People admire you for speaking out, for carving your own path. Surely talking about that is a good thing. Harry crossed his arms, his tone dripping with disdain. Or maybe it's just good for your ratings. Let's not pretend this is about understanding me. This is about your show, your audience, and the spectacle of having a prince who walked away from the royal institution. The studio felt heavier now, as if the bright lights had dimmed under the weight of his words. Dermot's smile had vanished entirely, though he clung to his professionalism. Alison, still trying to hold the fragile balance, cleared her throat. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation with Prince Harry. The screen cut to commercial, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud, promising more chaos to come. When the cameras returned, Alison's smile was brighter than ever, though it seemed stretched thin with effort. Dermot adjusted his posture, leaning slightly forward, his expression calm, but his eyes betraying a flicker of irritation. Harry sat with one leg crossed over the other, arms folded tightly across his chest, his defiance almost tangible. Alison dove in, determined to reset the mood. Welcome back to This Morning. We're joined today by Prince Harry, talking about life, family, and his exciting new projects. Her laugh was cheerful, but carried a nervous edge. Harry, let's talk about your latest charity work. You've been involved with some incredible organizations in California, haven't you? Harry gave a slow, dismissive nod, his eyes scanning the studio as if sizing it up. Yes, though I doubt the specifics matter much to your viewers. People here seem to prefer the gossip, don't they? Alison blinked, caught off guard. Well, I think our viewers are genuinely curious about the positive work you're doing, she said, her voice a touch too bright. Harry smirked, leaning back further in his chair. Curious, maybe, but not committed. Let's be real. Charity work doesn't make headlines. My private life does. That's why I'm sitting here, isn't it? The audience murmured, some chuckling nervously. Dermot's face tightened, but he kept his tone even. Harry, to be fair, many people are interested in your work. We try to strike a balance, talk about your projects, but also the things the public wants to know. That's just the nature of live television. Harry scoffed, his eyes glinting with defiance. Balance? No, Dermot. Balance would mean focusing on substance, not trying to trip me up with questions about my wife and kids. Dermot inhaled slowly, his patience visibly thinning. I don't think asking about your family is tripping you up, Harry. It's something viewers relate to. You've often spoken about wanting to be a good father. That's something people admire. Harry's laugh was sharp and humorless. Admire or scrutinize. Every word I say about my kids is dissected, twisted into something else. And now here you are, playing the same game. Alison jumped in, her voice softer but strained. Harry, I think Dermot means it in a positive light. People love hearing about Archie and Lilibet. How are they doing? Harry's lips pressed into a thin smile, his sarcasm unmistakable. They're thriving, Alison. Thriving despite the constant noise, the endless speculation, the fact that their father can't even sneeze without someone writing a tabloid headline about it. But thanks for asking. The tension was now almost unbearable, the audience shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Dermot straightened his notes, his jaw tightening. Let's pivot a bit, he said, his tone professional but firm. Harry, there's been a lot of talk about your Netflix projects, documentaries, specials. Some reports even suggest there were disputes over financial demands for the new season. Can you tell us more about that? Harry's eyes narrowed, his expression turning icy. Ah, there it is. The money question. Predictable. Dermot raised his brows, unfazed. It's not meant to provoke, Harry. These are public reports. People are curious if there's truth to them. Harry leaned forward, his voice sharp and dripping with disdain. People are curious because the press feeds them lies, and shows like this serve it up on a silver platter. You call it journalism. I call it voyeurism. Gasps fluttered through the audience. Alison tensed, her hands gripping the table as she tried to ease the friction. Harry, I don't think Dermot meant it like that. He's just asking what's on people's minds. But Harry wasn't backing down. And maybe people's minds are too small if they're obsessed with whether I negotiated a fair paycheck. Last time I checked, I'm not the only person trying to provide for their family. The audience's unease mixed with scattered applause, but the atmosphere remained heavy. Dermot's patience was fraying further. He forced a polite smile. Fair enough, Harry, but you've spoken often about moving away from the monarchy's trappings. Doesn't taking multi-million-dollar deals while criticizing the institution seem contradictory to some? That was the spark that ignited the fire. Harry's eyes flashed with anger. Contradictory? You mean surviving? You mean building a life outside a gilded cage that crushed my mother and nearly destroyed me? Forgive me if I don't cry into my crown jewels. Alison leaned in quickly, her voice trembling slightly. Harry, no one's denying your experiences. Dermot's just saying. Harry cut her off, his voice rising. No, Alison. Dermot's insinuating I'm a hypocrite for wanting out, but still needing resources to live. Newsflash, that's called adapting. It's called refusing to be defined by a broken system. Dermot's jaw clenched, his calm facade cracking. He exhaled sharply. Harry, I'm not insinuating anything. But people see you criticize the monarchy while enjoying privileges tied to it. That's where the questions come from. Harry leaned closer, his face like stone. Privileges? You think privilege is watching your mother die in a car crash because of the institution's obsession with control? You think privilege is being hunted by cameras every single day? Keep your lecture about privilege, Dermot. You haven't lived my life. The studio fell silent, the audience holding its breath. Alison reached out, as if her touch could calm the storm. All right, let's all take a moment. This is getting heated, and we're live. But Dermot's composure was fraying further. His voice was low but tight. I respect your pain, Harry, I do. But there's a difference between sharing your story and sneering at anyone who dares ask a question. This isn't therapy, it's television. Harry's smirk returned, cold and cutting. And maybe that's the problem, Dermot. Too much television. Too many people like you pretending to care while digging for drama. Congratulations, you've got it. The tension was suffocating, the air so thick it felt like it could shatter. Alison forced a strained smile at the cameras. We'll be right back after the break. The screen faded to commercial, but the studio buzzed with the realization that this was no longer a friendly chat. It was a collision course, and the worst was still to come. When the cameras returned, Alison's laugh rang out a little too loudly, a practiced move to mask the simmering tension. Welcome back to This Morning. We're still here with Prince Harry, talking about his life, family, and upcoming projects. Her smile was wide but brittle, like glass about to crack. Dermot sat motionless, his notes neatly stacked, his expression professional, but his jaw tight, with suppressed frustration. Harry, meanwhile, looked utterly unbothered, lounging on the indigo sofa with his arms spread casually along the backrest, exuding an arrogance that filled the room like a storm cloud. Alison tried to lighten the mood. Harry, let's pivot a bit. You've spoken so passionately about mental health and resilience. Do you feel your platform has helped bring awareness to those issues? Harry didn't look at her at first, staring straight ahead before turning with a faint smirk. Awareness? Sure, though I doubt your viewers need me to tell them mental health matters. It's common sense, Alison. Maybe ask me something less obvious. The audience gasped softly. Alison's smile froze, but she pressed on. I think people want to know how you've personally used your voice to change the conversation. That's important. Harry shrugged, his tone dismissive. I've said what I needed to say. If people haven't heard it by now, they're not listening. Maybe it's not my job to spoon-feed truths the world should already understand. Dermot shifted, finally speaking, his voice measured but pointed. With respect, Harry, raising awareness is ongoing work. It doesn't stop after one interview or speech. That's why people are curious about your role. Harry tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. Curious or just nosy? Let's be honest, most of these questions aren't about solutions. They're about keeping me on the defensive. And frankly, I'm tired of it. The atmosphere thickened again. Alison reached for her water glass, buying time. Dermot leaned forward, his patience nearly gone. All right, let's get specific, he said, his gaze steady. There's been a lot of talk about your relationship with your brother, Prince William. Many wonder if reconciliation is possible. Do you see that happening? Harry's smirk vanished, replaced by a glare. Speculation, speculation, speculation. That's all people want. William lives his life, I live mine. I don't owe anyone an update on our family chats, or lack thereof. Dermot nodded calmly. But you've chosen to speak publicly about those tensions before, so it's natural people ask where things stand. Harry's voice sharpened. Natural? No, Dermot, voyeuristic. People want drama, not truth. The truth is, my brother and I are different men with different paths. End of story. The audience stirred. Alison jumped in. But Harry, don't you think people root for you too? Harry cut her off, his tone icy. People root for what makes them feel better, not what's real. If they want fairy tales, they can watch Disney+. This is my life, not their bedtime story. The air crackled with tension. Dermot's patience was slipping. Fair enough. But when you release books, documentaries, and interviews that bring private tensions into the public, surely you understand why people follow up. Harry gave a bitter laugh. Of course you'd spin it that way. I tell my story, and suddenly I'm accused of oversharing. Yet the palace feeds the press daily, and nobody calls them out. Hypocrisy at its finest. Alison's smile was fading, her voice quieter. Harry, I think Dermot just means, Harry cut her off again. I know exactly what Dermot means, and maybe he should admit he's fine with the palace controlling the narrative, but not with me speaking my truth. The audience buzzed with unease. Dermot's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm, though laced with steel. Harry, it's simple. When you ask the world to listen, the world will ask questions. That's not persecution, it's accountability. Harry leaned forward suddenly, his voice sharp as a blade. Accountability for whom? For me? What about accountability for the family that silenced me? For the institution that chewed up my mother and tried to do the same to my wife? Where's their accountability? The words hung heavy, the silence deafening. Alison placed a gentle hand on Dermot's arm, trying to calm the storm. All right, let's move on. But Dermot's mask was cracking. We can move on, Alison, but let's not ignore what's happening. Every time I ask a question, Harry, you deflect, insult, or belittle. This isn't a witch hunt, it's an interview. You came here by choice. Harry's smirk returned, cold and cutting. Choice? Hardly. These interviews are part of the circus, and you, Dermot, are one of the ringmasters. That was the spark that lit the fuse. Dermot leaned forward, his tone even but no longer patient. I've interviewed politicians, celebrities, grieving parents, people under immense pressure. Never have I been treated with the disdain you've shown today. It's not strength, Harry, it's arrogance. The audience gasped. Alison jumped in, her voice frantic. Okay, let's take a breath. We don't want this to get out of hand. But Harry only smirked wider, as if relishing the chaos. Arrogance, Dermot? Or maybe just honesty. I don't sugarcoat for people who don't deserve it. Dermot's eyes locked on Harry's, the tension now palpable. And there it is again, the contempt. Maybe the problem isn't the monarchy, the media, or your family. Maybe the problem, Harry, is you. The words hit like a thunderclap. Alison's face went pale, her hands fluttering nervously. The audience gasped, and Harry froze, his jaw tightening, his eyes blazing with fury. For a moment, the three sat in utter silence. The storm fully arrived. The studio air was thick, suffocating, as if the very oxygen had been drained. Dermot sat rigid, his knuckles white where they gripped his cards. Harry lounged opposite, his smirk now a mask for the anger simmering beneath. Alison tried desperately to cut through the tension, her voice high and shaky. All right, gentlemen, let's not. But Harry raised a hand, cutting her off. Don't worry, Alison. Dermot clearly needs to get something off his chest. Let him. Dermot leaned forward, no longer the diplomatic host. His voice was low, a warning shot across the studio. You want honesty, Harry? Fine, let's have it. The audience went silent, Alison's wide eyes darting between them. You've spent this entire interview telling the world how unfairly you've been treated, how silenced, how misunderstood. But let's look at reality. You claim to hate the monarchy, but it's the monarchy that gave you this platform. Without the royal name, you wouldn't have Netflix deals, book contracts, or this interview. You've cashed every check stamped with the crown while telling us how oppressive it is. Do you not see the hypocrisy? The audience gasped, phones whipping out to record. Harry's smirk faltered, his jaw clenching, but he forced a scoff. Hypocrisy? It's called survival. I'm not apologizing for using what was forced on me. Dermot's voice grew sharper. Survival? Harry, you're one of the most privileged men alive. You've traded castles for California mansions, tabloids for Netflix specials. That's not survival. It's self-indulgence. Alison tried again, her voice trembling. Dermot, please. But he was past restraint, years of composure eroded by Harry's sneering condescension. And another thing, Dermot said, leaning so close the space between them felt dangerous. You attacked the family that gave you everything, hiding behind words like truth and authenticity. But isn't it true, Harry, that without Meghan's push, without the spotlight you claim to hate, you'd still be the forgotten spare? Isn't all this, every interview, every book, just a way to cling to relevance? Harry's face flushed red, his voice rising. How dare you? But Dermot cut him off, his voice booming. How dare you? How dare you sit here sneering at us, at the public, at your family, while taking every privilege your name affords? You've turned grievance into a brand, pain into a paycheck, and this, he gestured around the studio, into another stage for your arrogance. The audience erupted, some gasping, some clapping nervously, others whispering furiously. Alison stood halfway out of her chair, arms outstretched as if to hold back two fighters. Please, let's not. But Harry shot to his feet, his chair scraping violently against the floor, his voice cracking with fury. I don't have to take this. Not from you. Not from anyone. You think you know my life? You know nothing. You sit here with your smug questions, pretending to be fair, when you're just another cog in the media machine that's tried to destroy me and my wife. Dermot stood too, his chest heaving, his voice ice cold. If you can't answer fair questions without insults and tantrums, maybe you shouldn't come on this show at all. Harry's fists tightened, and for a terrifying moment, the audience thought he might lash out. Instead, he pointed a shaking finger at Dermot. You'll regret this. Both of you. Everyone will see how you've treated me. This is an ambush, pure and simple. Dermot, unflinching, turned to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize. This is not the conversation we intended today. We respect our guests, but respect is a two-way street, and I cannot in good conscience continue this interview. Harry froze, the words sinking in. Dermot had ended it, cut him off, dismissed him live on air. You're throwing me out? Harry demanded, incredulous. Dermot met his eyes, steady and unyielding. Yes, this morning, not your soapbox. It's time you left. The audience gasped again. Alison covered her mouth, shaking her head. Harry's face twisted with rage and humiliation. He grabbed his jacket from the sofa, muttering, Unbelievable. You'll all see. You'll regret this. With that, he stormed off the set, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. Alison, wide-eyed, turned to the camera. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. That's not what this show is about. We try to bring light and joy to your mornings, and that wasn't it. Dermot exhaled deeply, his face pale, but resolute. We'll be right back after the break. The screen faded to the This Morning logo as the audience erupted into shocked chatter. The footage was destined to become one of the most replayed, dissected, and explosive moments in British daytime TV history. Harry had come to control the narrative, but left ejected from it, live on air. What did you think of this fiery confrontation? Was Dermot right to call Harry out, or did Harry go too far? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you.